Welcome, everyone. After 14 months, I still have to say I'm Rabbi Michael Walk. I know it's a somber occasion, serious occasion, I should say, to be here, but it makes me very happy to see all of you here. It is a pleasure to have you back in the sanctuary in this beautiful, sacred space, and I welcome you back if this is your first time. I also welcome anyone who's joining us over StreamSpot. We're so glad that you are starting Yom Kippur together with us. Last week on Rosh Hashanah, we celebrated the birthday of the world, the day that God began to create the world. 6 days after that, day 6, we're told in the Torah, God creates humanity. And for the first time, we read God creates human beings in God's image. And the Torah is not clear on what that means, and so Jewish tradition has interpreted it to mean that God's image means that we, like God, have the ability to speak. God creates the world with God's words. We create, we fashion, we harm, we rebuild our worlds with our words. The words spoken when we are on our own, the words spoken to others, the words spoken in happiness, and the words spoken in anger. Speech is our most beautiful, our most powerful gift from God. And so we start Yom Kippur each year with Kol Nidre, a renunciation of vows, an admission, a confession that we have not always lived up to our word. And that's okay, that's human, but we start the holiday by sharing that confession with God. I'm going to ask everyone to please rise. With this ark opening, we honor Russell, Allison, Stella, and Judah Traw, and Betsy Grant Caperonis. We turn to page 204 in the Machzorim. The Torahs are carried forward as Cantor leads us. Or Zarua la tzadik ul yishrei lev simcha, light is sown for the righteous and joy for those whose hearts are true.
וישיבה של מעלה ובישיבה של מטה על דעת המקום ועל דעת הקהל אנו מתירים להתפלל עם הבריינים.
By the authority of the court on high and by the authority of this court below, with divine consent and with consent of this congregation, we grant permission to pray with those who have transgressed. Page 205, Kol Nidre. Every vow and bind, oath, ban, restriction, penalty, every term that sets things out of bounds, all that we vow or swear, ban or bar from ourselves, from last Yom Kippur to this, and from this Yom Kippur until that which is to come, let it be for the good. Each one we regret. Let each be released, forgotten, halted, null and void, without power and without hold. What we vow is not bowed, what we bind is not bound, and what we swear is not sworn. Kol Nidre.
Kol Nidre Vesarei Vacharamei Vekonamei Vechinuyei Vekinusei Habalenu, Aleinu, Letova, Kulhoni charatna ve'on, Kulhon yehon sharan, Shevikin, Shevitin, Betelinum putalilin, La sheririn vela kayamin, Nidrana la nidre Vesarana la esare Ushevuatana 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 la Shevut.
All grudges, resentments, and vows of vengeance and bitterness, all undying hatreds or annoyances that we may hold on to, or talk endlessly about, or lose sleep obsessing over, or bring up at family dinners to the consternation of all present, from the previous day of atonement until this day of atonement, for the benefit of our own health and the peace of mind of all who surround us, regarding all of this that we have refused to let go, despite the fact that they are long past, or pointless, or one-sided, or ridiculous, or destructive of the innocent, or hurting ourselves more than anyone else. Regarding all of them, we repudiate them. All of them, we let them go, give up, wave away, acknowledge as stupid, declare null and void, because we are done. Our grudges are no longer our grudges. Our silent resentments are no longer resentments. Our eternal vows of vengeance are no more. we continue with the final recitation of Kol Nidre.
Kol Nidre ve'yesarei v'charamei v'konamei v'chiruyei v'kinusei u'shevut Ad Yom Kippurim haba, Aleinu letova. Kol Ichara Navion, Kol Yehon Sharai, Shevikin, Shevitin, Betelin u'mevutalin, L'asheririn v'la kayamin, Nidrana Nidre Diesarana Laesarei.
The entire congregation of the people of Israel shall be forgiven, as well as the stranger who dwells among them, for all have erred.
V'nislach lechol hadat b'nei Yisrael, v'lager hagar b'tocham, ki הגר הגר בתוכם, כי לכל העם בשגגה, ונסלח לכל הדת בני ישראל, ולגר הגר בתוכם, כי לכל העם בשגגה. סלח נא לעוון העם הזה, כגודל חסדך, וכאשר נשאת לעם הזה ממצרים ועד הנה, ושם נאמר, ויאמר אדוני, סלחתי כדבריך. ויאמר אדוני, סלחתי כדבריך. ויאמר אדוני, סלחתי כדבריך, סלחתי כדבריך. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה.
Blessed are you, Adonai our God, ruler of the universe, for granting us life, for sustaining us, and for bringing us to this moment. Torah scrolls are now returned to the ark. The Kol Nidre is the melody of the Kol Nidre is one of the oldest melodies in Jewish tradition. It epitomizes the term traditional. Such an old melody and so universally accepted that it's referred to as Sinai, as having come from God to Moses at Sinai. And yet each generation elaborates on it, writes new arrangements of it that sound pleasing to its ear. And Cantor Lissick beautifully demonstrated what I would call both a more traditional version of Kol Nidre and a newer version of Kol Nidre. Thank you, Cantor. May be seated. Andy, you don't know true power until you've been an honors chairman on Kol Nidre evening, do you? Last year, when you were all on the other side of a computer screen, I couldn't see what you were doing during services. And I'm sure that there were moments when I said, please rise, and you thought, or maybe you said out loud those famous words, Rabbi, that's just not happening right now. Well, over the course of the next day, I will be saying, please rise, and you may be seated fairly often. Of course, standing up, rising is a position of respect, position of solemnity, acknowledging the special nature of a prayer, honoring the Torah. But of course, if you are unable to remain standing, please sit down and do not worry that anyone is judging you for it. The other logistical note that I will request, and mention this a number of times throughout Yom Kippur, to ensure that everybody who is here, and again, grateful, happy that you are here, ensure that all of you are comfortable. I ask that people keep their masks firmly affixed over their mouths and noses while they are in the congregation. Rabbi Israel Salanter lived in Lithuania in the 1800s. Early accounts of his life show that he had an incredibly introspective personality and was torn between a realization of his unworthiness on the one hand and the compelling need to teach others how to strive for self-improvement, a disposition, I should point out, that every rabbi should aspire to. Although he served as a Rosh Yeshiva, the head of a Talmudic academy, he yearned to teach his Torah, to share his teachings not with scholars, but with artisans and with businessmen, regular people, people not engaged in intense Torah study. Salanter went on to form a school of thought and Jewish spiritual practice called Musar, or Musar, that taught the importance of cultivating inner virtues in addition to following mitzvot, in addition to following God's commandments. One of his most famous teachings, most quotable teachings at least, he taught, "When I was a young man, I wanted to change the world, but I found it was difficult to change the world, so I tried to change my country. When I couldn't change my country, I began to focus on my town. As I grew older, I tried to change my family. Now that I am older, I realize all I can change is myself. But I've also come to recognize that if I started with myself, I could then make an impact on my family, and my family could make an impact on our town, and that in turn could change the country, and together we could all indeed change the world." Although Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur are the high holidays celebrated with the biggest crowds in the synagogue of the year, surrounded, thank God, by people we care about, by people we look forward to seeing, the themes of the holidays are in fact focused more on the individual than on the larger community. In the Unutana Tokef poem, which we chanted last week and will recite again tomorrow, we describe how each and every person in the world will have his or her opportunity on these days to stand one-on-one before God and to make their case. While we tend to talk in very lofty terms and concepts on the high holidays, the actual work that we have to do is much closer to home. So instead of talking about heaven and courts and scales and lawyers and prosecutors, let me bring this down to earth and share a struggle of mine. My first year of college was tough, and like many freshmen over the course of the year, I gained the infamous freshman 15. Well, let's say at least 15. After the spring semester ended, I, together with a friend who had had a similar experience, took it upon ourselves to get into shape. We worked together at Camp Ramah in Nyack and stayed physically active all day, helped each other at camp make good choices about food, and went running together after the campers went home every day. Working so closely with a partner, really in a way you can only do while you're spending summer at sleepaway camp, is the best way to go. And during that summer, I lost over 30 pounds between my freshman and sophomore years. Exhilarated, I returned to school the next year, a new and more confident person. I had done the work to get into shape and could put that stage of life behind me. I was wrong. I held out for about 3 years before that weight came right back. In the last 20 years, I have learned a few things about myself. I've learned that I have a very strong sweet tooth. And I've learned that I can gain weight very easily. While that summer was a memorable high moment, I have lost track of the number of times I have knuckled down and said, I'm going to lose this weight and I'm going to keep it off. It's been one of the more demoralizing experiences of my life, both because it is something that obviously is so personal, but also because after all that time, even when I feel like I am in great shape, I fear that it's only a matter of time before I crash again. After 20 years, it's something that causes me a certain amount of internal distress and a feeling of failure. I believe I can do better. I would even say that I feel ashamed of it. And I know that I'm hardly unique in this regard. If you face this particular struggle, I very much feel your pain. If you don't, well, this sermon is for you too, don't worry. Worrying about a few pounds may sound very mundane compared to the grand themes of reward and punishment that we began to discuss on Rosh Hashanah. But Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, is a time not to focus just on God's judgment of us, but on the way we stand before ourselves in judgment as well. As we begin Yom Kippur together, we consider what it is that we are asking God for in the new year, and what actions it is that we should focus on. While we use the word sin often during this time of year, the English word does not properly convey the deeds that we should be calling to mind. We use this word because we live in a Christian-influenced society, and in Christian theology, a sin is an immoral act considered a violation of divine law, so it seems to fit right into our religious terminology. The idea of an original sin teaches that people inherited a tainted nature and a proclivity to sin just by virtue of being born. Yet as Jews, we should not actually talk about sins, because our tradition takes a more comprehensive approach to teshuvah, to repentance, to returning. On Yom Kippur, we speak about 3 types of misdeeds, using words found in the Torah. A chet is a misstep, or literally means missing the mark, as if one were shooting an arrow and hitting the outer rim of the target but missing the center. A pesha is a conscious act of wrongdoing, like taking revenge, stealing, or murder. Finally, an avon is an unintentional act that nevertheless had harmful consequences. Of those 3 categories, only a pesha sounds like what I would describe as a sin. Because of the chata'im, the missteps that I mentioned are very personal to me, every Yom Kippur I relate very strongly to a private meditation in the Machzor that is traditionally recited by a person about to accept on him or herself the full day of fasting and abstaining. It is called the Tfilah Zakah, the prayer for purity, and was written by Rabbi Abraham Danziger, known as the Chaye Adam in the 1700s. Page 203 in our Machzor, if you're curious. Rabbi Danziger opens his prayer, Master of the universe, is there a person anywhere who never sins? I am but flesh and blood, often yielding to temptation. He then goes on to list different parts of the human body that God gave us and talks about how he has misused them. For example, you created me with a tongue and a mouth and gave them the ability to speak the words with which you formed heaven and earth. But I made my mouth impure by embarrassing people, by laughing at others, by gossiping, by lying, by causing arguments. After going from head to toe, and the original text is definitely not PG, Danziger declares, Therefore I come to you on this Yom Kippur, and have taken on myself the mitzvah not to eat or drink, not to bathe, not to wear leather shoes, or engage in acts of physical intimacy, in order to devote this day to asking forgiveness for the misuse of your gifts, and to learn once again the holiness of my body. Rabbi Danziger's prayer sets the intention for our fast, a practice whose purpose is often misunderstood. We are not punishing ourselves, but rather choosing to step away from the physical demands of our bodies on this day as we reconsider how we use them. More than that, however, this prayer teaches Judaism's view of our potential and our flaws as human beings, and presents an optimistic take on our ability to engage in teshuvah and to change ourselves for the better. Danziger establishes that each of us is inherently good, and each of us may have misused what God has given us, but we still have the potential to use our gifts properly. A quote-unquote sin, therefore, in Jewish tradition, is not an inherent flaw in us, but rather it is a choice that we make, and then make again. We like to joke about Jewish guilt and Jewish mothers. We try to escape it. But tradition teaches that it is right and proper to feel guilty about our misdeeds. Biologists who study embodied cognition would agree and explain that guilt is important because it plays a role in regulating moral behavior. It can help us correct our mistakes and prevent future wrongdoing. But then another word I used before, shame. Shame is something else. The early 20th century anthropologist Ruth Benedict developed the idea of cultures of guilt and cultures of shame. Both types of cultures, she explained, teach people how they ought to behave, but they have different focal points of responsibility. Rabbi Jonathan Sachs used Benedict's theory frequently as he explained Judaism to Jews and to non-Jews alike. He explained, in shame cultures, what matters is the judgment of others. Acting morally means conforming to public rules, and expectations. You do what other people expect you to do. You follow society's conventions. If you fail to do so, society punishes you by subjecting you to shame, ridicule, disapproval, humiliation, and ostracism. In guilt cultures, what matters is not what other people think, but what the voice of our conscience tells you. Living morally means acting in accordance with internalized moral imperatives. You shall and you shall not. What matters is what you know to be right and wrong. The culture that we live in is often one that is built around public shaming of wrongdoing, especially in the last few years, as more and more of our lives are lived in the public eye through social media. On Rosh Hashanah, we say that God is the one who remembers all that has been forgotten. But now we've become more and more cognizant of how hard it is for anyone to forget our less than perfect moments if they are captured online. When everything is public, it is easy to ignore your actions and focus on someone else's. Yet shame, different than guilt, can be dangerous. A shamed person has few options. He can absorb the shame as part of himself and live with that feeling. He can apologize without conviction behind it, or he can double down on his behavior and show that he has nothing of which to be ashamed. Judaism, our faith, our practice, in contrast, focuses on guilt. We introduce the Vidoy, the confession, on Yom Kippur with a declaration, "We are neither so insolent nor so obstinate as to claim in your presence that we are righteous without chait, for we, like our ancestors, chatanu, have missed the mark." Before we even start to confess, we tell God that we are not going to pretend to be righteous or to deny responsibility. Then we say what it is we are guilty of, we atone, we do what we have to make amends, and we move on. This is what Jewish tradition calls teshuvah, repentance. As Rabbi Salanter, the master of Jewish pietism of Musar, taught, we start Yom Kippur with a deep look at ourselves. In Kol Nidre, we just acknowledge that we know we will not be perfect in the coming year either. Thankfully, most of us are not guilty of true pishaim, of true crimes. But we each have our chataim, the areas where we try but can't get it right, and our own avonot, the times in which we accidentally cause harm to someone else. We ask God to let us own these acts. Let us feel guilt from our own internal voices rather than shame from others. And let us commit to move haltingly forward toward better lives on this Yom Kippur and in the new year. Gemar Chatima Tova. We turn in the Machzorim to the Mariv, to the evening service on page 207. Please rise for the Baruch Hu.
Join with me. Lie, 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 Baruch hu et Adonai
seated. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, whose word brings the evening dusk, whose wisdom opens the gates of dawn, whose understanding changes the day's division, whose will sets the succession of seasons and arranges the stars in their places in the sky, who creates day and night, who rolls light before darkness and darkness from before the light.
ומעביר יום ומביא לילה ומבדיל בין יום ובין לילה אדוני צבאות שמו אל חי וקיים תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד ברוך אתה אדוני
ברוך שמו Page 208, Ahavat Olam.
I think this is a melody you've grown to know. Ahavat Olam, Beit Yisrael, Amcha, Ahavta, Torah u'mitzvot, Chukim u'mishpatim, Otanu limadeta, Torah u'mitzvot, Chukim u'mishpatim, Otanu limadeta, Al ken Adonai, Eloheinu, b'shochvenu u'v'kumenu, נשיח בחוקיך ונשמח בדברי תורתך ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד, לעולם ועד. כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו ובהם נגה יומם ולילה ובהם נגה יומם ולילה אהבת עולם בית ישראל עמך אהבת. ברוך אתה אדוני, ברוך שמו, אוהב עמו ישראל. שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד, ברוך שם כבוד מלכותו לעולם ועד. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם להיות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך.
Page 209.
Adonai Elohechem emet.
Ramana Kozovichem Aleinu Kivan Elohim wins lot of enough in Israel. Then Moses, Miriam, and the people of Israel joyfully sang this song to you, Mi Chamocha Ba'elim Adonai, middle of page 210.
ומלכותו ברצון קיבלו עליהם משה ובני ישראל לחנו שירה בשמחה רבה ואמרו כולם מי כמוך באלים אדוני כמוך נדר בקודש נורא תהילות אוסף אלה מלכותך ראו בניך בוקע הים לפני משה זה אלינו ואמרו Adonai yimloch leolam vaed ונאמר כי ועד אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני ברוך גל ישראל
Allow us, Adonai our God, to sleep peacefully and awaken us to life, O Sovereign. Blessed are you who spreads the canopy of peace over us, over all the people of Israel, and over Jerusalem. Page 211.
Let's join our voices together. Hashkivenu. Hashkivenu. Adonai. Eloheinu leshalom. Leshalom. Hashkivenu. Adonai. Eloheinu leshalom. Leshalom. ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך, ברוך אתה אדוני.
Baruch hu, Baruch Shemo.
הפורש סוכת שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל ירושלים.
For on this day atonement shall be made for you to purify you from all your transgressions. In the presence of Adonai you shall be pure. Page 212. Please rise in the middle of the page. Ki vayom hazeh.
כי ביום הזה יכפר עליכם, לטהר אתכם מכל חטאותיכם, לפני אדוני תטהרו. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא תברך חירותי, וימליך מלכותי בחייכון ובמכון, ובחיי כל בית ישראל, בגלה בזמן קריב ימרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולעולמי עולמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויפאר ויתרומם וינשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי קודשה בריחו. לילה ולילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דמירן בעלמא וימרו אמן.
We spend the next few moments in silent prayer, the words of the Amidah, beginning on page 213.
love and our joy with our hearts can be woken to you, to you, to you. למען יזמרך כבוד ולא ידום. למען יזמרך כבוד ולא ידום. אדוני אלוהי לעולם אודך. So the weight of these wrongs that I've done won't define me, while the pain of these wrongs I recall won't confine me. The weight of these wrongs I have done won't define me, while the pain of these wrongs I recall won't confine me. למען יזמרך כבוד ולא ידום. למען יזמרך כבוד ולא ידום. אדוני אלוהי לעולם אודך. What we hope, what we dream, our deepest prayers can't be broken.
Now call on Board President of Temple Israel, Teresa Brenner.
The Young Temple Israel family, we are so glad you have joined us this evening. I am delighted to be speaking with you on Kol Nidre as your president. Can you all hear me in the back? All right, great. It is so wonderful to have some of you physically present in our home here at Temple Israel, and so many of you with us again over live stream. Let us take a moment to briefly close our eyes and remember what you see when we are all physically together in one place at Temple Israel during Kol Nidre. Recall your family who travel to be with you, those friends who always sit around you, those congregants with whom you look forward to catching up. Now open your eyes, and what you can see this year, no matter where you are, is the light of our ark, the faces of our rabbi and the cantor, the evening sun which tried so hard to peek through the clouds today through our beautiful stained glass windows, and the warmth in everyone's smiles behind their perfectly attached masks over their nose and mouth. It is so heartening to hear this year the greetings for a good year, and the voices rising together in prayer and song, the teachings of the Torah, our rabbi's words of wisdom, our cantor's stunning voice. While we still have to imagine what it feels like to squeeze one another's hands or give one another hugs, we all feel the love of our family, the warmth of our community, the seriousness of the day, the unworthiness of the soul, and the gratitude to Adonai. As I stand before you this evening, the beginning of the holiest day of the year, I feel in complete awe and am filled with immense gratitude. I am in awe of what we have experienced and accomplished this year despite COVID-19. I am tremendously thankful for our dream team clergy and the wisdom and warmth they bring into our entire congregational family. I am grateful for our interim executive director and the entire professional team and the work they constantly do to keep everything running smoothly. I have deep appreciation for our volunteers and lay leaders, our greeters and gabbai, our Torah and Haftorah readers, our regular daily minyan makers, our Shabbat sweet or savory treat sponsors. And I typically would not list people by name because we would see everyone so frequently in the sanctuary for Shabbat, but this year, because we are physically distanced, I'm going to take a few minutes to name a few people by name. So thank you to our men's club, led by Josh Lowensteiner, the Women of Temple Israel, represented by Margaret Musa, our social club, led by Ruth Goldberg and Irving Beanstock. Our outreach groups, such as Torah on Tap with Eric Cohen and Torah Tots. Our social action committee, headed by John and Tess Berger. Our ritual committee, chaired by Michael Abadi. Our Gabbai coordinator, Barney Weinstock. Our High Holy Day seating committee of Stephanie Simon, Peggy Gartner, and Norman Steinberger, who still did work this year to plan for all sorts of contingencies. Our house committee with Kevin Levine. Our religious school committee led by Nicole Levine, our bar and bat mitzvah committee led by Stephanie Simon, our PTO overseen by Elena Esposito, our finance committee led by Treasurer Tommy Mann, and our wonderful High Holy Day Honors Committee, co-chaired by Andy Cohen and Larry Sands, Meredith Gartner, Steve Hockfield, Barney Weinstock, and Michael Abadi, supported by Karen Turk and Melissa Lefko. Other members of our Board of Trustees, the doctors Alyssa Levine and Brian Ablitz, Eric Wind, our technology expert, Melanie Brown, who serves on the membership committee and is a TI representative of the board of the Foundation for Shalom Park, Tom Bach, who serves on the finance committee and is our representative on the board of the Foundation for the Charlotte Jewish Community, Steve Moore and Mike Eisner, regular Shabbat attendees, Justin Levine and Elliot Meadow, who I appointed to the board and who brings deep HR expertise. Our executive committee, Amy Udoff, who does too many things to mention, Nikki Sachs, who is always willing to deliver announcements when I am unable to do so, Stephanie Meadow, who serves as secretary, Tommy Mann as treasurer, and David Rosenthal, our immediate past president. And all our past presidents, including Stuart Breitbart and lifetime president Dan Ruda, who continues serving on the board. Our ad hoc committees, especially this year, our medical advisors. The doctors Alyssa Levine, Brian Ablitz, Bob Haber, Josh Levine, Ross Udoff, Steve Zaks, and Lisa Davidson. Our co-chairs of the Rabbi's Installation Weekend, Gary and Jody Michelle, and Amy and Ross Udoff. Our co-chairs of the third annual Cantor's Winter Concert, Norm Shapiro and Amy Udoff. And the so very many of you who serve on the boards of the other Jewish agencies here on Shalom Park and in the greater Charlotte Jewish community and beyond, many of whom I have attempted to thank during my Kol Israel columns during this past year. But most of all, I am in awe of and deeply appreciative of each and every one of you. I'm thankful for how much the temple means to you and how much you mean to the temple. I'm thankful for your patience and your perseverance, your kindness and communication, your resilience and flexibility, and your dedication to Temple Israel and conservative Judaism. I'm thankful for your inner renewal and additional financial commitments, your volunteer involvement, and your participation in our services and rituals, and your intense curiosity to learn. I'm thankful for your call to social action, your compassion to those in need, and your service to our community. Every year, this period of time provides an opportunity for three things: Shavua, a returning to our state of goodness; Tefillah, a reaching of our souls towards Adonai; and Tzedakah, a giving of some of what we have because it is the just and right thing to do. The rabbi and the cantor handled so beautifully the first two elements, and so I am left with the tzedakah portion. This evening, I am presenting you with an opportunity to fulfill tzedakah by requesting that you financially sponsor Rabbi Michael Walk's official installation as our senior rabbi on October 1st and 2nd, where we will have a very special Shabbat weekend with very special guests and a very special service. Sponsorship opportunities received by the end of the day this Friday will be recognized in the printed program. We appreciate each and every gift. Please join us in installing Rabbi Walk and in celebrating and welcoming him, his wife Heidi, their daughters Clara Rose and Julia, and his parents Cantor Morris and Jerry Walk into our Temple Israel family. We also thank our legacy donors who have committed to naming Temple Israel as a beneficiary in an end-of-life gift. We celebrate those donors who have made their intentions public every year on Legacy Shabbat. When the National Leave a Legacy Jewish Donor Initiative began several years ago, the focus was on increasing the numbers of donors who were legacy donors and not on the dollar amount of the gifts. The national initiative has received a new challenge this year to have each legacy donor share their story and recruit one new legacy donor. If you are a legacy donor, please accept this challenge, and if you are not a legacy donor, please consider becoming one. The Legacy Donor Program is also now rightfully focused on the amount of an end-of-life gift, suggesting a principal amount able to generate a withdrawal rate equal to your annual commitment to the synagogue. So, for example, an end-of-life legacy gift of $60,000 at a recommended withdrawal rate of 4% would yield an annual gift of $2,400 each year to Temple Israel, hopefully in perpetuity. Legacy gifts are easily funded with proceeds from a retirement account, life insurance policy, stocks, bonds, or cash. And we are in need in what I call during your lifetime legacy gifts, which would be used for enhancing our offerings, capital expenses, and other vital maintenance items, such as repairing some of our Torah scrolls. An example of just such a gift is the generous multi-year gift from Arlene and Milton Berkman for our extraordinary cameras, sound system, and audiovisual technology, which all of us benefited from these last 18 months. Please consider becoming a during your lifetime legacy giver. Your lay leaders and professional staff remain focused on being good financial stewards of our collective financial commitments and investments in Temple Israel. I'm grateful for our families who have renewed their annual commitments, and we are making solid progress towards our budget for this year. I hear from so many of you who believe that we are poised for greatness under the religious leadership of Rabbi Walk and Cantor Lissick and the professional leadership of Interim Executive Director Karen Turk. Weekly Shabbat services are not to be missed. I no longer want them to be the best-kept secret in town. You will want to hear Rabbi Walk's thoughtful sermon and Cantor Lissick's lyrical prayers. You can truly sense the excitement and the vibrancy of our community at Temple Israel. You can also glimpse the future by seeing the happiness of our Torah tots as they clutch their plush Torah toys and sing along with Mr. Caleb and Rabbi Kornsgold, and by hearing from our Temple Israel religious school parents about their children loving to blow their gifted shofars. We have so much to look forward to in this coming year of 5782. Sukkot and Simchat Torah are soon to arrive, followed by the official installation of Rabbi Walk. You will hear about our third annual winter concert with our very own Cantor Shira Lissick and bestow our coveted Shofar Award on December 12th. And we will celebrate many of our students becoming a bar or bat mitzvah starting in October and finishing in May. And I remain hopeful that by the end of my presidency in mid-May 2022, we will have resumed our synagogue life with all of its pre-pandemic splendor, gatherings, services, kiddushes, and in-person opportunities to build connections and relationships. And yes, I am an eternal optimist. Regardless, this year will overflow with unique, meaningful, and memorable experiences, providing us with a sense of belonging and community. I would like to take a minute also to seek forgiveness for future mistakes we will make in this coming year. We are not perfect, and mistakes will happen, and when they do happen to you or those you love, or to the causes in which you are interested, it can be particularly painful. Please know these inevitable mistakes, which are part of the imperfection of being human, from typographical errors or omissions in printed materials, to my mispronunciation of names, to unintended interpretations of spoken or written words, to omissions in thanking those who volunteer, which if I am certain of only one thing this evening, it is that I have indeed already missed naming someone. All of those mistakes are not intentional, and I ask in advance for your forgiveness and your compassion. I won't attempt to further thank the so very long list of so many of you who have contributed so much of your good thinking, time, resources, and counsel to the continued success of Temple Israel. We would be here for far too long if I did. So please accept my sincere thank you to each and every one of you for bringing all that you are and all that you have, indeed for bringing your best self to Temple Israel. Temple Israel is our spiritual home. We are a family, a community, a kahila, and we belong together. I believe Temple Israel is where each of us is experiencing our individual journey in Judaism, in a community where we can collectively lift one another up and do good in the world. My desire is that we continue creating a warm, welcoming, respectful environment where we value our diversity of thoughts and talents, where we bring joy to those who are celebrating, healing to those who are hurting, a deeper sense of conservative Judaism to those who are seeking, and hope and a sense of peace to all. May you have good health, happiness, and hope in 5782. May you have an easy fast, and may you be inscribed and sealed in the book of life.
Teresa, it took me about half a year to realize that your eternal optimism was real. Thank you for leading us and guiding us through this extremely difficult period of time for the temple and for the world. I have a 5-year-old daughter, who many of you have seen on live stream or in person here, Clara Rose. She'll come home from school one day, ask her how it was. Great. Played with so-and-so, I ate whatever, I read whatever, I did. It was a great day. A few minutes later, she'll ask to eat some snack before dinner or watch another show on TV, and we say no. Her response is instantaneous. Stamp her foot and say, "Worst day ever." It's quite something. Shows me how quickly a day can change. This past Shabbat, we commemorated the 20th anniversary of September 11th. I'm always struck by the scenes before the planes hit of what a beautiful day it was in New York City that day. Yet that changed instantly for countless people, turning into what in fact was the worst day of their lives, the worst day ever. We turn to the piyut, to the poem on page 223, Ya'alet hachanunenu me'erev. This traces the development of the day of Yom Kippur that begins in the evening, goes through the morning and the afternoon, and ends the following evening. Each stanza asks, "May our supplications rise up at evening, our pleas arrive with the dawn, our songs transform the dusk." We know how days can start off well and go wrong so quickly. With this prayer, we ask God to give us days that maybe don't start so great, but have the potential of being incredible days by the end. We hope that Yom Kippur is a day in which we achieve true change and true spiritual satisfaction. Page 223. I invite you to please rise as the Ark is opened. With this Ark opening, we honor Aaron Goldstein and Terry Cathcart. Page 223.
יעלה תחנוננו מערב, ויבוא שבתנו מבוקר, וירא רינוננו עד ערב, וירא רינוננו עד ערב, יעלה קולנו בערב, ויבוא צדקתנו מבוקר, וירא פדיוננו עד ערב, וירא פדיוננו עד ערב.
May our suffering rise up at the evening, our forgiveness arrive with the dawn, our purity transform the dusk. May our prayers rise up at evening, coming to you with the dawn, transforming us at dusk. We pick up the final stanza of the page.
יעלן כתנו מערב, ויבוא אליך מבוקר, וירא אלינו עד ערב, וירא אלינו עד
seated as the ark is closed. The soul is yours, the body is your creation. Have compassion on your handiwork. The soul is yours, the body is yours. Deal with us according to your nature. Top of page 225, Haneshama Lach.
הנשמה הלך והגוף פועלה חוסה חוסה העולם הלך הנשמה הלך והגוף פועלה חוסה חוסה העולם הלך, הנשמה הלך, והגוף שלך חוסה, חוסה, העולם הלך, הנשמה הלך, והגוף פולח חוסה, חוסה, העולם הלך, הנשמה הלך והגוף שלך, אדוני עשה למען שמך, עתנו על שמך, אדוני עשה למען שמך, בעבור כבוד שמך, כי אל חנון ורחום שמך, למען שמך אדוני, וסלחת לעווננו כי רבו.
Page 226, we come to the first instance of the Yud Gimel Midot, the 13 attributes of God, the Adonai Adonai, the words that Moses used to implore God to forgive the people of Israel. We repeat these words throughout the day of Yom Kippur, turning to God in mercy, asking for mercy. Page 226, please rise.
ויעבור אדוני על פניו ויקרא אדוני אדוני אל רחום וחנון ערך אפיים ורב חסד ואמת נושא חסד לאלפים נושא עוון בפשע וחטאה ונקה וסלחת לעווננו ולחטאתנו ונחלתנו. סלח לנו אבינו כי חטאנו, מחל לנו מלכנו כי פשענו, כי אתה אדוני טוב וסלח ורב חסד לכל קוראיך.
We remain standing and turn to page 227, the beautiful piyut, Ki Hinei Kachomer, as clay in the hands of the potter. In each stanza, we are compared to a raw material that God can shape as an artisan, reflecting the potential that each one of us has within us. Page 227, the ark is opened, and with this ark opening, we honor Alan, Jonathan, and Jeffrey and Myra Bryn.
כי הנה כחומר ביד היוצר, ברצותו מרחיב וברצותו מקצר, כן אנחנו בידך, חסד נוצר,
iron in the hand of the blacksmith who forges or withdraws it at will, so are we in your hand, supporter of the poor. Recall your covenant, do not heed the accuser. As the helm in the hand of a sailor who holds the course or abandons it at will, so are we in your hand, good and forgiving God. Recall your covenant, do not heed the accuser. As glass in the hand of the glazer who shapes or melts it at will, so are we in your hand, pardoner of sin and transgression. Recall your covenant, do not heed the accuser. As cloth in the hand of the draper who drapes or twists it at will, so are we in your hand, righteous God. Recall your covenant, do not heed the accuser.
כי הנה ככסף ביד הצורף, ברצותו משגשג וברצותו מצרף, כן אנחנו ביערך, ממציא למזור טרף, לברית הבית, לברית הבית,
Ark is closed. You may be seated for a moment. We turn to page 229, the introductory paragraph to the Yud Gimel Midot, El Melech Yoshev al Kisei Rachamim, God, sovereign who sits on a throne of mercy. This paragraph includes a beautiful melody that I hope you'll join with cantor in singing.
המלך יושב על כיסא רחמים, מתנהג בחסידות, מוחל עוונות עמו, מעביר ראשון, מרבה מחילה לחטאים וסליחה לפושעים, מוחל עוונות עמו, מעביר ראשון, מרבה מחילה לחטאים וסליחה לפושעים, עושה צדקות עם כל בשר ורוח, לא חירתם תגמול, לא חירתם תגמול, עושה צדקות עם כל בשר, בשר ורוח, בשר ורוח, לא חירתם תגמול, לא חירתם תגמול.
Middle of the page, the ark is opened, and with this ark opening, we honor Evan Max Tannenbaum and Sophia Braver.
ויעבור אל פניו ויקרא, אדוני, אדוני, אל רחום וחנון, ארך אפיים ורב חסד ואמת, נוצר חסד לאלפים, נושא עוון ופשע וחטא ונקם. חטאתנו נחלתנו. סלח לנו אבינו כי חטאנו, מחל לנו מלכנו כי פשענו, כי אתה אדוני טוב וסלח ורב חסד לכל קוראיך.
The ark is closed. We're going to reopen it in just a moment. We turn ahead to page 233, the culmination of the Slichot, penitential prayers, the prayer Shema Kolenu, where we ask God, hear our voice, Adonai our God, be kind and have compassion for us, willingly and lovingly accept our prayer. The most powerful, well, it's a very familiar prayer actually, the second verse, Ashivenu Adonai Elecha v'nashuva chadesh amenu kekedem, we sing every time we put the Torah away. But I've always found the final line of this prayer, Al tashlichenu, to be the most powerful. Do not cast us away as we grow old. Do not desert us as our energy wanes. Asking God to support us even as we are not at our best, even as we are not a peak. A very powerful request. Page 233. With this ark opening, we honor Rabbi Michael, Heidi, Clara Rose, and Julia Walk. I know them. And Mark, Shari, Jordan, and Justin Sokolowitz. I know them too. Ark is closed. You may be seated. We turn to page 234, the poem, the prayer, the song, Ki anu amecha ve'ata Eloheinu, for we are your people and you are our God. In this short little prayer, we consider our relationship with God, going through a list of metaphors or a list of possible descriptions of our relationship with God, and asks us to consider how we think about God. Page 234, top of the page.
Eloheinu ve'ohev otenu b'imotenu, selach lanu, mechal lanu, kaper lanu, ki anu amecha v'ata Eloheinu, anu amecha v'ata avinu, anu avadecha v'ata Adonenu, anu ke'alecha v'ata chelkeinu, anu nachlatecha v'ata goraleinu, anu tzonecha v'ata ro'einu, anu charmecha v'ata notreinu, anu teulatecha v'ata yotzreinu, anu rayatecha v'ata dodeinu, anu segulatecha v'ata keroveinu, anu amecha v'ata malkeinu, anu mamirecha v'ata manireinu.
We've arrived at the vidoi, the confession in which we stand before God as individuals and as a community, confessing our transgressions. And I spoke about before, we introduce the vidoi with little meditation, an introduction, setting our intention. The traditional version, Havo lefanecha, is at the bottom of 234. Tonight we will introduce the vidoi with a new meditation to set our minds on the important work of confession, a new setting of V'al Kulam. Cantor is joined by Penina Polsky.
Am I there for those who need me, giving of my heart completely? Have I been caring and have I been patient? Have I forgiven without reservation? Do I take my days for granted, treating others even-handed, and shown compassion to the homeless stranger? Have I been humble before my Creator? Ve'al kulam,
Ve'al kulam,
ve'al kulam,
ve'al kulam,
Elohai slichot, ve'al kulam, ve'al kulam,
ve'al kulam,
ve'al kulam,
ve'al kulam,
Elohai slichot,
ve'al kulam. Have I tread lightly on the planet? Have I held fast to your commandments? And have I raised my voice against injustice? Have I been giving or have I been selfish?
ve'al kulam,
Ve'al kulam,
ve'al kulam,
ve'al kulam,
Elohai slichot, ve'al kulam, ve'al kulam,
ve'al kulam,
ve'al kulam,
ve'al kulam,
ועל כולם,
אשא עיניי
ועל כולם,
אל ההרים,
אלוהי סליחות,
מאין יבוא עזרי,
ועל כולם,
עזרי מעי
ועל כולם,
אדוני,
אלוהי סליחות,
עושה שמיים
Yasher Kochech to Penina Polsky. Penina, it's great to have you up here. We celebrated your bat mitzvah at Zoom. This was so much better. Wow. Page 235. Please rise for the Ashamnu, the shorter confession. Cantor leads us in the familiar tune. She will chant each phrase of the Ashamnu, and we will repeat after her.
Ashamnu,
Ashamnu,
Bagadnu,
Agadnu,
Gazalnu,
Gazalnu,
Dibarnu Dofi,
Dibarnu, Dofi,
Hevinu, Hirshanu,
Hirshanu,
Zadnu,
Zadnu,
Hamasnu, Tafanu Sheker, Maradnu, Diatznu, Sararnu, Avinu, Pashanu, Sararnu, Kishinu,
Turn ahead to page 237, the longer confession, the Al Chet Chatanu Lefanecha, for the Chet which we have transgressed against you. Beginning at the top of the page, Cantor opens and we continue silently.
על חטא שחטא לפניך באונס וברצון, ועל חטא שחטא לפניך באימוץ הלב.
אחרי שנלבנך ובלידה, ונלבנך בביטוי שפתיים, אחרי נלבנך בגילוי הערות, אחרי שנלבנך בגלוי בסתר, אחרי נלבנך בדעת ובמה, נלבנך בדיבור, נלבנך בזוז.
על חטא שחטא לפניך ביצר הרע, ועל חטא שחטא לפניך ביודעים ובלא יודעים. ועל כולם לבניך בחחש וכזב, והלחיץ לבניך בחפת שוחד, הלחיץ לבניך בלצון, לבניך בלשון הרע. הלחיץ לבניך בעיניים רמות, והלחיץ לבניך בעצות מצח, ועל כולם אלוהי סליחות, סלח לנו מחלנו, כפר לנו, הלחיץ לבניך הלחיץ לבניך בבהילות, והלחיץ לבניך הלחיץ לבניך בתשומת יד, והלחיץ לבניך בתימהון לבב, ועל כולם אלוהי סליחות, סלח לנו מחלנו, סלח לנו מחלנו, כפר לנו.
For all these sins, forgiving God, forgive us, pardon us, grant us atonement. We turn to page 243 for Avinu Malkeinu. With this ark opening, we honor Cantor Shira Lissick, and Ruben and Ma'ayan Lissick Nierenberg, and Megan and Andy Harkavy. Cantor starts at the top of the page, and then we pick up in the middle, repeating phrase by phrase after her.
אבינו מלכנו חטאנו לפניך,
אבינו מלכנו חטאנו לפניך, אבינו מלכנו חדש לנו שנה טובה, אבינו מלכנו חלץ לנו, אבינו מלכנו שחלץ לברכה, אבינו מלכנו סלח מחלה,
אבינו מלכנו החזירנו בתשובה שלמה לפניך,
אבינו מלכנו החזירנו בתשובה שלמה לפניך,
אבינו מלכנו שלח רפואה שלמה לחולי עמך,
אבינו מלכנו שלח רפואה שלמה לחולי עמך,
אבינו מלכנו זוכרנו בזיכרון טוב לפניך,
אבינו מלכנו זוכרנו בזיכרון טוב לפניך,
אבינו מלכנו כותבנו בספר חיים טובים,
אבינו מלכנו כותבנו בספר חיים טובים,
אבינו מלכנו כותבנו בספר גאולה וישועה,
אבינו מלכנו כותבנו בספר גאולה וישועה,
אבינו מלכנו כותבנו בספר פרנסה וכלכלה,
אבינו מלכנו כותבנו בספר פרנסה וכלכלה,
אבינו מלכנו כותבנו בספר זכויות,
אבינו מלכנו כותבנו בספר זכויות,
אבינו מלכנו כותבנו בספר סליחה ומחילה,
אבינו מלכנו כותבנו בספר סליחה ומחילה.
אבינו מלכנו שמע קולנו, אבינו מלכנו חטאנו לפניך, אבינו מלכנו חמול עלינו ועל עוללינו וטפנו, אבינו מלכנו כלי דבר וחרב רב מעלינו, אבינו מלכנו כלי כל צר ומסטין מעלינו.
Malkeinu, have mercy on us. Answer us, for our deeds are insufficient. Deal with us charitably and lovingly, and redeem us. Ark is closed. We continue, page 245, Kaddish Shalem.
יתגדל ויקדש שמי רבה.
Amen.
בעלמא דברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי בחגיכון וביומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל בגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן.
Amen.
יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולעולמי עולמיה יתברך
Yitbarach,
יתברך יתברך וישתבח ויפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו לעילה ולעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דמירן בעולמה ואמרו אמן.
Amen.
תתקבל תלות הון ובאות הון דכל ישראל קדם אבוהון דיבי ישמעאל ואמרו
Amen.
יש למה רבה מן שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן.
Amen.
עושה שלום במרומה ויעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו
We rise for Aleinu, page 246.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוצר הארץ ומשב יקרו בשמיים ממעל ושכינתו זו בגובה מרומים הוא אלוהינו אין עוד אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו ככתוב בתורתו וידעת היום בהשבות אל לבבך כי אדוני הוא אלוהים בשמיים ממעל ועל הארץ מתוך הדינון הכתוב בתורתך אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו
May be seated. We turn to page 248, Psalm for the season of repentance.
אדוני אורי וישים מירן מיוסכם מיפחד אחת שאלתי Adonai, Achad Sha'alti, Otav Akesh. Shifti, Shifti, Kol Bevet Adonai. Shifti, Shifti, Kol Yemei Chayai, Lachazot B'Noam Adonai, Ulevaker B'Heichalo, Lachazot B'Noam Adonai, to gaze upon the beauty of Adonai. One thing, I ask you, Adonai, to be with you all of my life. Lulei hamanti lero b'tuv Adonai beretz chayim, kavel Adonai chazak v'amitz libecha v'kavel Adonai.
Page 247. I invite those in mourning or marking a yortzeit to rise and join me in the words of the mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, v'yalmad divera kirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru amen. Yehi shemei Rabbah mevorach leolam ulomei olmaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnasei, v'yitadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shemei dekudsha brihu, le'ela le'ela mikol berchata v'shirata, tush bechata v'nechamata, damiran b'yalma v'yimru amen. Yehi shlama Rabbah min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru amen. May be seated. Would you like to say something? Please.
Thank you, Rabbi Walk, for your engaging and thoughtful sermon, Cantor Lissick, for your voice lifting us closer to God, Penina Polsky for joining the cantor. That was just stunningly beautiful. The flowers on the bima were donated by Harold and Libba Russo and Pearl and Alan Mann and their families in loving memory of their parents, Mary and Simon Wanowich, and their grandparents, Golda and Abraham Kaplan, Libba and Pinkas Wanowich, and their families who perished in the Holocaust. The kippot are being donated by Jody and Stuart Cohen in loving memory of their parents, Ethel and Jimmy Cohen and Marlene and Louis Goldsticker. Thank you to this evening's greeters, Stuart Breitbart, Beth and Carrie Chapman, Lloyd Shear, Mike Eisner, Josh Lowensteiner, Bob August, and Terry Cathcart, and also to Karen Turk and her team for being here, for checking us in, to Sean Seifert for his audiovisual support, to Adam Ward and Mira Frisch for their musical accompaniment. Services tomorrow, virtual family services are at 9 a.m., followed by in-person family services at 10 a.m. and Torah Tots at 11:30 a.m. at Camp Mindy at the Levine JCC. Services in the main sanctuary begin with morning services at 10 a.m., followed by Yitzker at 12:30 p.m., and an outside optional in-person Yitzker service at 2:30 p.m. Thank you for joining us this evening. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow, and easy fast to you and your loved ones.
Thank you, Teresa. That was certainly quick. Let's say Yisker at 12, not 12:30. We don't want anyone to miss it. Let's say 12 for Yisker. Just a clarification on Yisker. As I said, Yisker will take place in its normal location in the service tomorrow as part of the Torah service. But as you saw in the announcements, we will have a second Yisker service outdoors after the completion of the morning service. It will be at 2:30 in the afternoon. Outside our front entrance, there'll be chairs set up over there, and that's intended for people who are watching on live stream who would like to have an in-person experience for Yizkor on this Yom Kippur. We aim to complete the service in here at around 2 o'clock. Should give anyone following at home time to get down to the front parking lot for Yizkor at 2:30. Yasher Kochech Cantor, beautiful job. We conclude with Yigdal on page 250.
יגדל אלוהים חי וישתבח, נמצא ויהנה את המציאותו. אחד ואין יחיד כייחודו, נעלם וגם אינסוף לאחדותו. אין לו דמות הגוף ואינו גוף, לא נערוך אליו קדושתו. קדמון לכל דבר אשר נברא, ראשון ואין ראשית לראשיתו. הינו אדון עולם לכל נוצר, יורה גדולתו ומלכותו. שפע נבואתו נתנו, על אנשי סגולתו בתפארתו. לא קם בישראל כמו שעוד נביא ומביט את אמונתו. תורת אמת נתן לעמואל, היה נביאו נאמן ביתו. לא יחליף האל ולא ימיר דתו, לעולמים לזולתו. צופה ויודע סתרנו, מוביל לסוף דבר בקדמתו. גומל לאיש חסד כמפעלו, נותן לרשע רע כרישתו. ישלח לקץ ימין משיחנו, בפתות מחלקי קץ ישועתו. מתים יחייל ברוב חסדו. ברוך הדעת שם תהילתו, מתים יחייל ברוב חסדו. ברוך הדעת שם תהילתו.
L'shana tova techatemu, may you be sealed for a good year. Chag Sameach.
חג שמח, גמר טוב, לשנה טובה.